Dr. Zixathara's forearms trembled as she reviewed the experimental protocols for the 13th time. The crystalline structures protruding from her elongated skull pulsed with nervous energy, casting prismatic light across the sterile laboratory walls. In 3 cycles of her homeworld's twin suns, she had managed what no Catalian scientist had accomplished in millennia. She had isolated the neurochemical compound responsible for what the galaxy's sentient species called survival instinct. The discovery should have been cause for celebration. Instead, it filled her with dread. The compound, designated ZK-47, appeared to be the key to understanding why some species thrived in hostile environments, while others perished at the first sign of danger. Her hypothesis suggested that by inhibiting ZK-47 production, any sentient being could overcome their most primal fears and operate with pure logical efficiency. The applications were staggering: deep space exploration, hazardous material handling, emergency response operations. There was just one problem. She needed a test subject. The Galactic Ethics Committee had been clear in their restrictions. No experiments on unwilling participants, no coercion, no deception about the risks involved. And the risks were substantial: potential, memory loss, permanent psychological damage, or death. The survival instinct existed for good reason, after all. For weeks, Zixathara had posted recruitment notices across the galaxy's communication networks. The response had been predictably tepid. The Rigelians were too cautious. The Centaurians too proud to admit they felt fear. The Andromedans simply ignored her entirely, considering her research beneath their intellectual pursuits. She was about to abandon the project when her laboratory's communication array chimed with an incoming message from the Sol system. The sender identified himself as Dr. Marcus Chen, a xenobiologist from the planet Earth. Dr. Zixathara, the message began, "I've reviewed your research proposal regarding ZK-47 inhibition. I understand you're looking for a volunteer test subject. I'd like to formally submit my application for consideration." Zixathara's auxiliary eyes blinked in sequence, a sign of profound confusion among her species. She had heard of humans, of course. The galactic community was still buzzing about their recent admission to the Confederation. They were described as a peculiar species, neither the strongest nor the smartest, but possessing an unusual tendency to involve themselves in situations that more sensible beings would avoid. She activated her holographic display and accessed Chen's credentials. Impressive academic record, extensive field experience in dangerous environments, published research on extremophile organisms. More importantly, his psychological profile indicated high stress tolerance and what human psychologists termed sensation-seeking behavior. But it was the addendum to his application that truly caught her attention. "I should mention," Chen had written, "that I've read your preliminary data suggesting a 23% fatality rate during initial trials on laboratory specimens. I'm still interested. In fact, that's precisely why I'm interested. You see, Dr. Zixathara, humans have a saying: someone has to be first. We've built our entire civilization on the backs of volunteers willing to test new medicines, explore uncharted territories, and push the boundaries of what's possible. If your research succeeds, it could revolutionize how we approach space exploration and emergency response. If it fails, well, at least we'll know. Either way, knowledge advances." Zixathara found herself staring at the message for several minutes. In her centuries of life, she had never encountered such casual acceptance of mortal risk in pursuit of scientific knowledge. Her own species, the Catalians, were methodical to a fault. They spent decades analyzing every possible outcome before taking action. It was why they had achieved technological mastery, but remained confined to their home system for millennia after developing faster-than-light travel. 3 days later, Dr. Marcus Chen arrived aboard a small human research vessel. Zixathara met him at the docking bay, her nervous system practically humming with anxiety. She had expected someone bearing the hardened features of a career risk-taker, perhaps scarred from previous dangerous endeavors. Instead, she found herself facing a slight man in his early 40s, with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses and the soft hands of someone who spent most of his time in laboratories, rather. than combat zones. He greeted her with a warm smile and what humans called a handshake, a bizarre ritual of gripping appendages that somehow conveyed both greeting and agreement. Dr. Zixthara, I presume, Chen said, his voice carrying an accent she couldn't identify. Thank you for accepting my application. I have to say your work on neurochemical fear responses is fascinating. I've been following your publications for years. Dr. Chen, she replied, her translator rendering her clicking speech into standard Galactic. I must ask, do you fully understand the risks involved? The mortality rate among test subjects has been substantial. Chen nodded thoughtfully. I've read your data. 23% fatality rate, 37% chance of permanent psychological alteration, 40% chance of complete success with minimal side effects. Those are actually better odds than the first human spacewalk, or the initial trials of our early vaccines, or about half the exploration missions my species has undertaken in the past century. Zixthara's cranial crystals dimmed with confusion. But why? Your species cannot possibly have such a diminished survival instinct that you fail to recognize mortal danger. Chen laughed, a sound that her translator struggled to interpret, finally settling on expression of amusement mixed with recognition. Oh, we recognize it all right. We just don't let it stop us. You see, Dr. Zixthara, humans have this peculiar relationship with fear. We feel it just as acutely as any other species, probably more so. But somewhere in our evolutionary development, we learned something important. The biggest risk is often not taking any risks at all. He gestured toward the laboratory equipment surrounding them. Every major advancement in human history required someone to volunteer for the unknown, someone to test the first antibiotic, someone to pilot the first aircraft, someone to undergo the first surgical procedure. We're not fearless, Doctor. We're just more afraid of stagnation than we are of death. As they prepared for the procedure, Chen chatted amiably about his research, his family back on Earth, and his hopes for the experiment's success. He showed no signs of anxiety, no last-minute hesitation. When Zixthara administered the ZK-47 inhibitor, he simply smiled and said, "See you on the other side." The procedure took 18 hours. Chen not only survived, but emerged with his cognitive functions entirely intact, the first test subject to do so. More remarkably, post-procedure interviews revealed that while his fear response had been significantly dampened, his judgment and decision-making abilities remained unimpaired. How do you feel? Zixthara asked as Chen sat up on the examination table. Chen considered the question seriously. Different but not diminished. It's like someone turned down the volume on the part of my brain that was always whispering about what could go wrong. I can still recognize danger, but it doesn't carry the same emotional weight. It's just information to be processed. Zixthara's research became the foundation for a new field of neurochemical enhancement, earning her the Galactic Science Prize and revolutionizing space exploration across dozens of species. But she never forgot the lesson that Dr. Marcus Chen had taught her. Sometimes the greatest scientific discoveries require not just brilliant minds but brave hearts willing to leap into the unknown. And perhaps most remarkably, when news of the successful experiment reached Earth, Zixthara received over 300 additional applications from humans volunteering for her next project, whatever it might be. She was beginning to understand why the human species had spread across their entire solar system in less than a century. They weren't just intelligent or adaptable. They were something far more dangerous to the status quo. They were willing.